Welcome, everyone. My name is Neela Babu, and I am part of the WSP Asset Management team. Thank you for joining our discussion today, Data Rich, Information Poor, Adding Value Through Improved Data Management. My colleagues and I will spend the next several minutes talking to you about the importance of data management within the context of asset management, and we will explain how good data management can provide your organization with the information it needs to support informed decision making. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. And if you have questions before then, please feel free to write them in the chat box. Once again, my name is Neela Babu, and I'm a consultant in WSP's Asset Management Group. I'd like to take a moment and introduce my US-based colleagues who will be presenting with me today. Madison White is also an asset management consultant. She has worked with large clients in structuring and enhancing their data. Brenden Duffy is a principal consultant in our group who has helped large clients implement new data systems, including supporting the development of data governance and data standards. Richter is a senior systems analyst who is our data analytics and visualization expert. At WSP, our focus on asset management is to extract value from our assets so that we can help our clients manage their assets with efficiency and cost effectiveness. As you all know, owners, managers, and operators of infrastructure are increasingly faced with the challenge of doing more with less. They need to expand and sustain their safe, resilient, and reliable services with aging assets and constrained funding. Asset management is bringing about a paradigm shift in how we care for the critical infrastructure on which we depend. Asset management is focused on extracting value from our assets and ensuring that we are doing the right amount of work at the right time, at the right cost, to deliver the right level of service. And it is a balancing act between what we can afford and what we need to provide. It's a shift away from reacting to failed assets and towards more preventive approaches. High-performance asset management drives the efficiency of asset-intense businesses and enables them to adopt more economic and sustainable work practices. WSP offers a range of services to help clients manage their asset data and ensure information is presented in a way that is accessible and aligned to agency objectives. We know that asset-intensive organizations are expected to be responsible owners of assets and data, and they recognize the need to manage their data in a way that benefits their assets, supports efficient use of resources, and demonstrates responsible management to their shareholders. WSP can help agencies extract meaningful information out of their asset data to improve the safety and reliability of their operations. We have the technical abilities to capture data health and to develop an approach to improving data quality. I'll now turn it over to Madison White to discuss how our team's data management fits within the context of digital services.
Thank you, Neela. So it's now widely accepted that good data management requires good data tools and technologies. And through WSP's digital service offerings, we look at those elements and help clients achieve more through improving their organizational capabilities. WSP considers 4 pillars as part of our digital services, which are the information requirements, the IT requirements, the analytical and operation technology requirements, and finally, smart assets. This webinar today is going to focus on the first pillar of the digital services, which is the information requirements, and specifically data management, which is really the backbone that supports all the other pillars. Without good data, none of the other elements will really provide much value. WSP has helped a number of major social infrastructure agencies in the US with data management services. And this includes all types of social infrastructure agencies, including transit, highways, water utilities. Essentially, any agency that has assets has a need for data management. And some of the examples of the work that we do with these clients include for California High-Speed Rail and several others, we've helped them to create a digital strategy as well as define their data standards. For Amtrak, we created a framework that helps them analyze the quality or health of their data and identifies targeted areas of data improvement. For the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, as well as several others, we supported the implementation and migration to a new asset management system. For BART, as well as a number of others, we used advanced analytic techniques and data modeling to create interactive dashboards to support reporting, decisions, and agency communications. One of the first activities we recommend when working with an agency is to develop a digital strategy, which I will ask my colleague Brenden Duffy to explain in a little more detail.
Thank you, Madison. Good morning, everybody. So what does it mean to be data rich but information poor? We find many organizations suffer from having asset data silos and incomplete data sets. It's common. There's often a great deal of data across the organization, but it's not coordinated in a way to get real value from it at the enterprise level. So rich in quantity but poor in overall quality and consistency is not uncommon. The solutions to this are multifaceted. Effective asset management policies, procedures, roles, and responsibilities help embed good asset management practices into the organization. Data requirements need to take into account all stakeholders and associated technology systems. The data must also sufficiently support decision-making throughout the entire asset lifecycle. So a digital strategy is a fundamental aspect of good data governance and data management. It aligns the organization and its capability requirements, the information necessary for effective decision-making, the data that models that information, and the technologies that are applied to facilitate good asset management. And data elements are clearly foundational to an effective digital strategy. Digital strategies provide an enterprise view of the organization's needs. This global perspective allows an organization to prioritize within the overall needs and make incremental improvements that are manageable and build towards an overall target state that an organization seeks to achieve. Creating asset data requirements within such a framework facilitates several important results. Evidence-based decision-making. The information generated through this approach is derived from real data. Incremental, sustained improvements. No organization can fix all of its problems at once. What's most important is that the organization can effectively implement change in a sustained way. With consistency, the data then becomes more valuable over time. Independent utility for each improvement in data and data management. With the digital strategy, improvements can be planned and designed to provide the organization standalone value while continuing to work toward that larger enterprise-wide goal. On the next slide, we'll discuss asset data within the asset lifecycle. On this diagram, we see that strategic asset management plans, their embedded policies and strategies provide an overarching framework for asset information standards. The asset data definition and data dictionary documentation, which we refer to as 84, and the resulting asset data schemas. This provides the necessary guidance to effectively build an organization's asset and location registries, which is the foundation of your asset data. The asset registries represent the digital twins of the physical assets. Digital twins should reflect the physical assets they represent throughout all stages of the asset lifecycle. Most organizations face data gaps, either missing information on a particular asset or asset class, or missing aspects of data within various stages throughout the lifecycle. When considering the timing of data requirements definition within the asset lifecycle, earlier is better. it becomes apparent very quickly that asset data should be defined prior to physical asset acquisition. And for many organizations, this is the first pain point and the first break in the data chain. The asset goes into service, they're immediately, playing catch up to retroactively collect data. I want to mention that concept again of sustainable incremental improvement. It's important to remember that data management is a long-term commitment. Done properly, noise is reduced over time, the signal rises to the forefront and supports effective decisions. In contrast, poor data modeling and poor data management over time will introduce more noise and reduce the value of the data. It's important to apply this concept at each step of the asset's life cycle. Ensuring the organization is committed to the necessary processes and that the data is ready for implementation are critical factors for success. And with that, I'll hand it back to Neela to talk about data readiness.
Thank you, Brenden. So with a lot of our clients, we have focused on this concept of data readiness, which is about moving data, migrating it from an old data management system into a new data management system. And during that process, it is crucial to understand the data that you have and confirm that it meets the functional and quality standards of your organization as defined by the data governance standard and by the organization's objectives. Evaluating data readiness is the first step to identifying and creating a robust data set capable of supporting the organization's asset management program and its critical decision making. Evaluation of data readiness includes identifying the best available data sources through key stakeholder engagements within the organization. Often, organizations can have multiple sources of data, whether it be sourced from different divisions of the organization, or in some cases, that the data is stored in different existing data management systems. Identifying the best available data sets ensures the most complete and accurate information is the basis for the new data system. Included in the data readiness is the level of completeness in the data set and how reliable the data is. One other factor that we include in data readiness is the question of how many assets have yet to be added to that data system. We've seen that for a lot of our clients. They have a significant number of assets in the data system currently, but there are still some assets that have not been added to that system. And so that there's a data collection piece to that part of the data readiness puzzle. Tied to data readiness is deployment readiness, which describes how ready an organization is to transition from their previous data management system to the new system. Deployment readiness is a combined evaluation of both the data readiness and the urgency for data migration. These two factors of data readiness and urgency can be depicted as I've shown on this graph. This is an example of something that we use to facilitate a discussion about the best way to conduct the data migration and develop a deployment plan. So in this example here, we have 3 departments within an organization, and each of those departments have subgroups that have been managing their data independently of one another. The size of the circle indicates how large the data sets are, and the center of the circle along the readiness and urgency axes depict how ready the subgroup is and how urgently they need to migrate into the new system. So this is kind of in a Pareto chart kind of fashion. The circles that are towards the right and moving upwards tend to be the most ready for deployment. And one of the factors that we consider in developing that deployment plan is for the groups that are less ready, is there something that we can do to enhance their data sets before we migrate their data? Should we strategically put them later in the deployment plan so that we have time to enhance the data, maybe collect more data, and come up with a strategic process for that as part of our overall deployment plan? With a deployment plan in place, the next step is to support the extraction, transformation, and loading process. And I'll turn it over to Madison to discuss ETL.
Thank you, Neela. So ETL refers to the process of extracting data from multiple sources, transforming that data into a consistent and compatible format, and then finally loading that data to a target system. And while ETL may not be one of the most exciting aspects of data management, it is certainly one of the most time-intensive and one of the most important. We have found that some agencies tend to underestimate the amount of effort required for this process. Transferring data between two different systems involves significant planning, management, and a rigorous quality review to ensure that the process is successful. An example of how rigorous this process can be is in one of our recent ETL efforts. We practiced the entire ETL process 5 times before actually loading the data to a final live production system. This allowed us to work through and resolve any issues, but also to time how long the process took so that we could minimize the downtime to an agency when they're utilizing a live system. And doing this practice several times allowed us to provide a seamless transition for them. In order to be successful with ETL, it requires a combination of technical expertise for the target system, as well as analytical capabilities to perform those transformations and rigorous quality checks. Another example of where we performed a rigorous quality check was we developed a program which analyzed every field in the new target system database against the source files to check not only that the data had been reliably migrated, but also that the format of that data was also in the desired format of the new system. Our team has advanced data analytic capabilities, which allows us to be agile when working with data from different formats or different EAM systems. We can be flexible and tailor solutions because we don't work with one EAM system. Once the data is in a consistent format and migrated to a new system, that's when you can really start to analyze and identify areas of improvement, which I will hand it off to Richter to talk about in a little bit more detail.
Thanks, Madison. Regardless of whether we are working on a brand new system or an established system, one of the key capabilities that we offer is to transform a nebulous, the data, into something that's easily understood stories that give people a common frame of reference. Our data analytic capabilities allows us to easily summarize and monitor data sets that we work with, while our data visualization capabilities help us communicate our findings and put more stakeholders in touch with their own data sets. One of the common needs that we see after an ETL process, or when we start working with a legacy system, is a better way to manage the data improvement efforts that the organization is doing. Data accumulates no matter what, but getting quality data is not necessarily guaranteed. We use data health dashboards as one way to help clients see the state of their asset records and monitor the success of their organizational partners in improving the data quality. Through the data design work that Brenden described and the data readiness work that Madison described, we identify beforehand the aspects of the data that are critical to the mission, and then visualize the health of those data fields, looking for completeness, accuracy, logical consistency between fields and between records, and then use that information and analysis to assign easy to understand grades A through F that change dynamically when the underlying data changes. So when people go in and make changes and improve the data set, we actually are able to see that in short order on the dashboard itself. These scorecards also feature drill downs that allow managers to see specific groups of records of assets or locations that have either leading or lagging data health, while also providing leadership with a consistent visualization that they can take into the same meeting after, that they can take into meetings and have the same visualization there each time to see that progress evolve as improvement efforts happen. The ability to see in detail where the sticking points are help managers to better know where they can break up the seemingly monumental task of improving data health into more manageable sprints for their team. Meanwhile, both leadership, managers, and team members working directly with the assets all gain a common understanding of the metrics that are being used and the common language to describe the work that needs to be done. Being able to track these changes over time and see progress helps ensure that people get the credit that they deserve, while also helping prepare the data for use in decision making. Once data has matured and stakeholders are more familiar with the important data elements, our dashboarding capabilities allow us to present a large amount of information in an easy to digest interactive visualization. We typically work directly with client data systems to knit together a visualization that draws multiple sources into a cohesive view. We have experts in Tableau, Power BI, Shiny, and Python that allow us to either leverage the ecosystem that's currently deployed at an organization, or alternatively deploy a dashboard from scratch. Using our domain knowledge and technical skills, our dashboards create additional value from the information already existing in client systems. There's also a self-reinforcing effect with dashboards that helps promote good data governance naturally over time. As people start to see the value in dashboards and what dashboards are capable of, more people become interested in having their own data equally accessible. In my experience, this can accelerate data improvement initiatives, boost accuracy in key fields, and bring more data owners to the table, which ultimately opens up new opportunities for enhancements to the dashboard and additional ways to analyze the data. Even dashboards that look wrong at first can be beneficial, since that gut reaction often highlights areas where there's an underlying issue in the data set that needs improvement. These capabilities, along with the totality of our data management services, help position clients for success in making the most out of their data resources.
So we come back to our original question. How do you get more value from your data? What I hope you've seen from us today is our high-level approach and process for making the most of your data. And some of the key points are laid out here. Number one is have a strategy. It's also super important to determine what your organization needs from your data. This can be objectives such as responding to regulatory reporting requirements, or improving the reliability of your revenue vehicles, or supporting your customer journey. It's also crucial that you evaluate the health of your current data and consider whether data enhancement would be beneficial as you move forward in your data journey. As part of that consideration, it may be worth looking at a new system to help support your data goals, or your asset management goals, or your larger enterprise goals. And if you are moving into a new system, it is crucial to have a plan for implementation. This includes having information standards, having a data governance plan, having data management processes that lay out the roles and responsibilities for each person involved, and ensuring that the appropriate resources are available to actually implement that plan. One thing that we really want to emphasize here is that this is a process. What you and your organization do first will depend significantly on where you currently are in your data improvement journey. So with that, I'll now open up the Q&A portion of the webinar.
Okay, thanks, Neela. I think we have a couple questions coming in here, so I'll read them out. And the first one here is, are there any clients or industries that stand out in terms of strong data health, and what are the lessons learned? Neela, do you want to take that one?
Yes, thank you, Madison. I would say that we're not necessarily seeing trends with clients or industries, but one of the observations that we've noticed over the past few years is that there tends to be a discrepancy in the amount of data collected for certain types of assets. We find that there is better data, and that meaning both more in volume and healthier data, whenever there is either a regulatory requirement or there are safety concerns with particular assets. So those groups of assets tend to have better data. And then assets that don't fall into that larger bucket, we have observed that they tend to have less data available about them, and it's less of a concern for the agency. One of the lessons that we've learned over time is that one of the crucial steps is that data handover right at the beginning of the commissioning process. So right now, a lot of agencies will have contractors and construction workers build and provide assets. But the link between providing those assets and getting the data about those assets is a missing link. So what we've done is we've helped clients with that issue in particular, and we've supported them in making sure the requirements related to data are ending up in that construction contract. So when the agency takes over and commissions those assets, they, along with that, get the data that they need for their asset management purposes.
Thanks, Neela. Okay, we've got another question here. How often do you see the need for managing asset data drive a concern or request for a new position in a department? Brenden, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So I think with the more recent requirements from FTA and other federal regulatory agencies regarding asset management, both in terms of supporting safety and financial accountability, there has been an increase in asset management positions throughout organizations. I also see that when trying to implement asset management, typically these organizations have been doing asset management, right? If you're an infrastructure intensive organization, you've been managing assets for the duration of the existence of the organization. So that's inherently part of the business. I think it's important to look at, how can the organization evolve with its roles and responsibilities. I'm a big proponent of having asset management just embedded as part of business as usual throughout the organization. And I think it's so I think what we're seeing is a combination of the two, where roles are evolving to accommodate better practices in asset management, and organizations are also adding certain types of roles like leadership roles for asset management, either on the business side, actually both on the business side and the technology side. Heavier implementation of enterprise asset management software and supporting technologies as well.
Thank you, Brenden.
No, thanks.
Oh, well, we're almost up on the time now, but maybe we'll go to one last question here. We all realize that bad data yields bad decisions, but how do we determine what is the right data to capture? And I can answer a bit of this. So you want to make sure that you identify what is the data that you need to make decisions, what is the right data, and then design your data standards and data requirements to focus on those areas. Going back to what Brenden said, there's incremental improvement. So if you're looking for the most impact immediately, you want to focus on targeted areas. And I think another aspect of that as well, of capturing the right data, is making sure that the people who are capturing the data understand, what is good data, what's the format that we need, what is the data that we want, and make sure that you have a plan to not only execute and implement that, but make sure that everyone is trained adequately as well. And I think another aspect of that is data health, and doing the data health analysis of identifying where are the areas of improvement within existing data sets. I don't know, Nicholas, do you want to add anything to asset data health?
Yeah, I think that your observation about having people on the same page about what the data should look like is essential to the exercise. Uh, we've encountered in some situations where people go out and they say we had 10 guys go out and look at and do inspections, which is great. People went out, they did the inspections, but they came back with different numbers or different scales, or they had different ideas about what it was. So we weren't able to use that information in the end. So I think it's very critical that everybody's on the same page and that people get credit when work is actually being done and we see those metrics move.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I think that we'll close the webinar here. And any questions that were answered with that, we can follow up with those questions through email. And we want to thank everyone for joining us today. And we'll leave it at that. Thank you.